So what's happening at Fort Wayne?
It's a beautiful day out there. We start seeing patients in about 45 minutes.
Nice.
And so we've got let me just check real quick here, but we got a full afternoon. And phone's been ringing off the hook today.
Yeah. Are you officially reopened?
Well, we never closed.
Right.
So, I mean, basically the way that what we ended up doing is we ended up, the rest of my week looks great. Basically we cut our staff down to half, and then we're just running half days right now, but we're actually going to start increasing that back to a normal schedule, or we're expanding our schedule back to where it should be, so that we're going to be here 2/3 of the day, and then making sure that we don't end up with big holes in our schedule.
Gotcha. Right. So yeah, things seem to be getting back to normal here in Florida, because I'm in Lakeland, Florida, and I keep getting videos from my girlfriend that the streets are almost back to normal traffic.
We don't have that here.
Well, Florida's still technically in a lockdown, so I think people are just getting sick and tired of staying in their houses.
So I'm fairly certain that almost everybody is. I mean, everybody's done with this.
Yeah, they're completely done with this.
And the interesting thing about it, I don't know if you saw these different studies, but there's a study that was done at Stanford and also one at Caltech. And basically the upshot of the whole thing is between 53 and 80 times more people than they thought originally have actually been exposed to this stuff, have antibodies for it. So basically what that does is it puts the mortality rate to somewhere between 0.1 and 0.4%, which basically means it's the same or even less than the regular flu virus.
Yeah.
They found the same thing in New York as well. I don't know if you saw Cuomo talked about the same thing up there the other day. And so He made an announcement on during one of his press conferences, which are just a joke. But so, the biggest thing about all this stuff is that they lied to us from the beginning, as far as the number of people that were actually not only susceptible to this stuff, but also the mortality rate is so much lower. So instead of the 2 million people that we're talking about, we're at 50,000 right now, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not discounting the fact that 50,000 people have passed. But at the same time, we know who is more susceptible to this stuff. And so it's a lot easier it would have been a lot easier for them just to basically say, you people need to stay inside. You people need social distance, as opposed to all the rest of
us. Let me ask you a question. We can talk about the politics of this. We can talk the medical side of this, but for other business owners, let's talk about this just from a business perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, because none of us saw this coming. We always try to plan for a rainy day, but nobody plans for, hey, the government's going to shut you down for 2 months.
Right.
And that just shut you down, shut everybody down.
Everybody down.
So let me just kind of talk about it from a business perspective. When this whole thing got started, and obviously you're not in New York or California or Florida where the whole state completely shut down.
Right.
But up in Indiana, how did that affect your business? When you got the news that everybody was going into shutdown.
I think the biggest thing is that obviously it's scarier than hell, and at the same time, we went from on average seeing somewhere between like 75 and 120 patients a day to seeing 5 or 10, which initially that's a hell of a shock. Yeah. And we had everybody canceling everything. So from there to where we are now, we're actually still seeing a lot more patients than most people are, but we're still not back up to where we should be at. And so when it comes right down to all this stuff, the first thing that we did is we started looking at it from the standpoint of, okay, what can we do to stay open and make things as safe as we possibly can for all these people? And so we kind of redoubled our efforts as far as making sure from a good hygiene standpoint, and keeping things clean and using special disinfectants and everything else, just so that we could actually comply with all the CDC guidelines, so that we could actually stay open. Fortunately, we're considered by both the Department of Homeland Security and also the state of Indiana Board of Health as essential businesses. And the reason that we're considered essential, though, is, and this is something that most people probably wouldn't think of, but it's something that I started looking at right away, is that we deal with patients that are in chronic pain. Okay,
Right.
There are a lot of different options. There are a lot of different arguments out there for the fact that what we do, boosts somebody's immune system, or eating right and that type of thing can actually help people avoid these types of illnesses. We can't really necessarily discuss that, because anytime you say anything like that, Facebook or YouTube or whoever now will pull you down. So they're completely disallowing anything like that, even though it's been proven. So the idea behind it is we started looking at it from the standpoint of, okay, well, first of all, we're keeping people out of the ERs. We're keeping people out of just regular medical clinics, which is where most of these people go when they're sick. And so they're going to be a lot more likely to be exposed to these types of viruses and that type of thing at those places. And that's one of the reasons I was like, you know what, we need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to stay open, and also along with that, making sure that we're we're working to help these patients. Now, when the lockdown thing started, and all of a sudden you had all these patients who are like, well, I can't go outside now, whatever. Obviously from a financial standpoint, it's a huge problem. And also several other people I talked to said, all right, I'll tell you what, don't pay anybody anything right now. And
wow.
Basically make sure that you keep complete control over your financial situation.
Right.
Because if you don't have any money coming in, but you have all your money going out for these different things, then obviously you're going to be putting not only your business in jeopardy, but also your family in jeopardy.
Right.
And so the idea behind that was, and that was very uncomfortable for me, because I don't like to not only I don't like to not only owe people money, but at the same time I don't want to be in a situation where we're affecting them in a negative manner either. So when it comes down to that type of thing, that's what the initial thought was. Okay, well, don't pay anybody anything. You can call your bank and have and basically discuss with them, either changing what your mortgage payments might be, or attaching that stuff onto the end of your mortgage, and getting some type of a reprieve while all this stuff is going on right now. You can do the same thing with credit cards. You can do the same thing with your electrical, power and gas.
Right.
And so the idea at that point is, okay, well, what are we going to do to survive? That was my biggest concern. That was the big thing that I started looking at. Now, all of that being said, when we look at this stuff now, okay, well, we have been seeing new patients. We have been collecting, from a financial standpoint, we're not nearly where we normally would be. Okay, but at the same time, what I started to do with that is I started looking at the different small businesses that we work with around here.
Right.
And so, as opposed to saying, well, I'm not going to pay anybody. I mean, if we got money coming in, I'm going to make sure that we're actually keeping an eye from a cash flow standpoint where everything is. And then at the same time, making sure that that if I am going to pay somebody, it's going to be our local businesses, other local small businesses that actually need the money, as opposed to these huge banks that are going to all end up with some type of a payout.
Right.
Along with that, you got the whole payroll protection thing. They just started. I just talked to my banker today. They just started round 2 of that today. And this is after they just finished up the whole last round of it. Where when they opened it up, they gave out all the money in a week and a half. I talked to a patient of mine who, he runs a small business. It's not that small, but I mean,
right.
Where he ended up getting, a little bit more than $1 million in payroll
Wow.
from the government for this, because it's 2.5 times what your monthly payroll is. So,
right.
So he actually did, get a couple $1 million or get $1 million plus for it. And one of the things that he told me was that his brother, who used to work for the SBA, said, look, you need to get your stuff in now. And that's the same thing. Anybody who hasn't either qualified or didn't get their SBA number for the last round needs to do right now. They need to make sure that they get all that stuff in, get it all taken care of, because, that money is going to go away pretty quickly too. And,
well, I can tell you for my manufacturing company and obviously our marketing agency, that when this whole thing got started, I personally got an email from the SBA, and I filled out that paperwork immediately, thinking I wanted to get my paperwork ahead of the flood of businesses that were going to need this thing, even if I didn't know what was going to happen back then. But
even if you didn't need it,
even if I didn't need it,
yeah.
But and obviously, it was a good idea to have that filled out ahead of time.
Well, yeah, because the biggest thing about it is if you didn't get it in right away, then what actually happened? Well, we know what happened. They ran out of money because they gave it all to big banks and other big businesses.
Yeah, billion-dollar companies that are listed on as opposed to small businesses with less than 50 employees that have been completely shuttered.
Right.
Yeah.
So you think about that, and then you start looking at some of the other people that are being affected by this. I mean, the people I think that are being probably affected the most harshly are restaurants.
Yeah. Service business. Yeah.
Yeah, especially mom and pop types of small businesses like that. So hopefully they're able to qualify for some of these things as well.
Right.
And when it comes down to it, I mean, I do think that as far as what I'm seeing, I do think that everything is going to probably bounce back relatively quickly, a lot more quickly than a lot of people do. But at the same time, then we have to start wondering, okay, well, what's going to happen in 8 months?
Yeah.
Are we going to end up with some other type of a problem then? And so then it becomes that same situation of, what are we going to do about it? Or what are we going to do to plan for this next thing? Because nobody thought this could have happened.
Yeah, and going to talking about managing your business from a financial point of view, how did it affect your employees? Did you keep everybody going at full steam, or did you pare people back?
We did. We actually we're actually running half of the staff right now, and along with that, we're actually running half a day. So it's something that we didn't want to do, but at the same time, we had a lot of employees that were just standing around. And one of the big things that we talked with them about is that we're going to get them back as quickly as we possibly can.
Right.
But at the same time, again, it all looks into the standpoint of what's the best thing to do to survive.
Yeah.
And if you have just a negative, a negative drain on that stuff, that's a problem. Now, I didn't want to necessarily have to let some employees go for the time being, but at the same time, we're going to hire them back as quickly as we possibly can.
Did you see a shift in your business to more people contacting you online?
Yeah, actually, not only that, but also the buying patterns of patients is a lot different now than it used to be. And what I mean by that is we don't have necessarily a lot of people just going, the people that are coming in are the people that are serious. And, they're people who, hey, I have a serious problem. I can't continue to live like this. And right now there is a period of time where, I don't have to work as much. I don't have to do the other things that I normally would do. So it kind of creates a little bit of urgency for them.
Right.
And so, we're dealing with patients. Most of the patients that I treat are different than a lot of other people because I treat the patients nobody else wants to see. They're in chronic pain. They are on different types of meds. They've had 1 to 20 epidural injections, or they've had, 1 to 14 surgeries. They've seen other chiropractors. Nothing's actually worked for them. Uh-huh. Those are the people that I actually work with, and those are the people that we have a great deal of success with.
And those are the people that even during a situation like this, they're still going to come see you because, they're in pain 24/7, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And
right.
so, I mean, it's all something that is very important to make sure that's one of the reasons that what we do is so important for these patients. And
right.
Because really their only option other than what we're doing is surgery or to live with the pain.
Right.
And, it not only becomes a quality of life issue, but it becomes a situation where we just don't know exactly what to expect next.
Speaking of that, don't you have a book coming out?
I do actually. I've got, it's called Surgery Not Included. It's the second edition. We did the original book in 2013, 2012. something like that. But this is all with re-updated information. So we've got new research and everything else that goes along with it. And basically what we're doing is for that, it's a book. It's not just for the patients, but it's also for the doctors to know that there is another option out there. And we've trained medical doctors and chiropractors from around the country to do what we do in my office. And we've been able to help a lot of them, not only help a lot of patients, but also change their lives.
Right. So when is that book going to be available?
I actually, as soon as we get through this whole thing, I think we're probably going to finish that up.
Okay.
It's all been, we've got the editing and everything else done. I'm hoping to have it, have an ebook ready for it here in the next couple of weeks. As soon as all of this stuff opens and I can get back in touch with my my editor, we should be all ready to go.
And the next thing I want to talk about is to see if you put together a plan for when we come out of this thing and we get back to normal, I guess, or whatever the new normal is. Because obviously if you went from 75 to 100 patients a day, down to 10, there's a backlog of people that are going to want to come in.
That need to come in. And so basically what we're in the process of doing right now is we're working to help increase the number of hours that we're seeing patients. And we're going to slowly do that so that as we bring people back, we don't have big gaps in our day.
Right.
And at the same time, while we're following the social distancing and everything else, I don't know if I told you about this, but one of the things that we started looking at with social distancing is, well, okay, so we've got all these patients and we've got such a waiting room that's just a certain amount of size. Okay. So what are we going to do to be able to get people in and make sure that we're helping to help them avoid, contact with other people if we possibly can.
Right.
So what we did is we put together an app. It's an app that they use. It's called Waitlist. It's an app that they use for restaurants and that type of thing, where people can actually scan a QR code. We've got a thing out a sign out in the parking lot, and also a sign on the front door, so they can actually check in with us. And then as soon as we're ready to take them into a treatment room, we can just hit something on the screen, which will actually send them a text message, so that we can just take them directly into the treatment room, so that they don't have to expose themselves to all these other people.
Sitting in a traditional waiting room.
Exactly. And
right.
So they can wait in their car. They can wait out in the front, the front patio or whatever. And basically it's just another one of those things that we're doing to make sure that we're following all these different guidelines that we have.
Until this whole thing has lifted and we can all go back to being normal and going to sporting events and sitting with 80,000 people, right?
The big question is, are they ever going to let it go back to normal? We talked about it before. As far as the whole thing is concerned, I always look at who benefits the most from this stuff. And then I start questioning what their motives are. So,
well, I can tell you, Major League Baseball, which, I'm a gigantic Yankees fan. And,
yep.
I have the app where I get to watch a baseball game every day. And of 162 games, I watch 140 of them.
Right.
I can't even imagine watching a baseball game at Yankee Stadium where nobody's there.
No.
Except for the players. Or an NFL game. I can't imagine a gigantic stadium and just the teams on the field.
I know, it's kind of scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, that's where they're going to start. And so, the big question is, are we ever going to completely get back to normal?
Right.
The hardest thing for me is to not shake people's hands. And that's just something that we've all grown up with. We've always done it.
Right.
And so now people are like, well, I can't really shake your hand. And so, that type of thing does worry me, because these are all a bunch of social norms that have been kind of torn down by that stuff. So
really that going back to how you're going to reopen your business, do you think that'll be something that is going to be part of our culture, or just in a couple of months you'll be like, oh, this is stupid, we just go back to it?
I think in a couple of months we'll start getting back away from it. But one of the interesting things from my standpoint is, and you and I have talked about different things from a marketing standpoint in the past. Right. And the one thing that we've known for quite some time is that things like print advertising are pretty much dead. Even as far as TV and that type of thing, we do a lot of radio and TV advertising, and basically those are things that we actually do to to not only help other people, but basically to make sure that we can let as many people know about what we're doing to help people avoid surgery as possible. Now, at the same time, things like Facebook or things like YouTube and everything else, I mean, what we're doing now is I'm doing a lot more video that we're actually reposting online. And then we're also looking at doing some other digital marketing and some of those things as far as putting together different landing pages and so we're changing what we're doing from a marketing standpoint to actually bring us into this new normal, because most people are getting their news and their information on things like Facebook, which is scary.
Well, is it scary in that they're getting it from a source that may not be vetted? But that's assuming that mainstream media is going through, the professional vetting process of, getting, when they get a fact, are they actually fact checking it and making sure they have multiple references, or is mainstream media just trying to go and get to the punch first? So that's why people are going to social media, because they know that's not filtered.
Right. Well, I would agree with that completely. And the biggest thing that we all grew up with, our networks and everything else, they're not going to lie to us. They're not going to try to color or cloud the information that they're giving us. But what we're finding more and more is that that's not necessarily the truth. And so it all goes back to that thing. Well, again, my question earlier was, what's their motive, and who is it that actually benefits the most from those types of things?
And I think the majority of people, especially younger people, get that. And that's why you see huge crowds of people going on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Snapchat and all the different social sites. So as business owners, we've got to be where the crowd is.
Exactly. And it's a lot less expensive. It's a lot easier to target the specific population that's going to benefit the most from what you do. And so whether it's what I deal with patients in pain that may need some chiropractic help, or whether it's some of the other things that you're doing, if they like to fish, or if they like to do things outside, they like to hunt, whatever, those are all things that you can actually more specifically say, okay, well, these are the people that I really want to get the information about whatever it is that I do.
Right.
And so
especially when you live outside of a major city center like Orlando.
Right.
When you buy television, you're buying all of Orlando, where we're 2 hours away from Orlando.
Right.
But if you're going to buy Orlando, you get all this stuff that you don't need.
But it's cost prohibitive in many cases too. I mean,
now it is, yeah.
For you to put something on, whether it's radio or TV, Orlando. I mean, it's just from the standpoint of overall cost. I mean, it's just something that in many cases can't be done by a small business.
And that's the thing. That I listen to a lot of different gurus that talk about taking advantage of advertising that's undervalued, and that's kind of really where Facebook is today. It's because for what you can target for your specific business, it would cost you 10 times as much to try to reach those people with television, network television.
I completely agree. And that's, it's the same thing with other just regular video that could actually be used for, for the pre-roll and that type of thing on different, whether it's news sites or whatever. I mean, you can actually target there as well.
So when people are looking for chronic pain, Fort Wayne, and they're, looking for that information, that video, then your 15-second pre-roll shows up and say, hey, listen, here's our free book, or, that sort of thing.
Right. Exactly. And so again, all of this stuff is, it's just, I think probably the best way to say it is that, we all have to evolve or we're going to die.
Yes.
As far as in this type of a business environment. And so that's the reason that when it comes down to all this stuff, it's like, okay, what do I have to prioritize? What do I have to do? And then what do we need to do to make sure that we can help as many people as possible, and make sure that we're being as smart as we possibly can about not only the I guess not only oh shoot, you know it, I just completely lost it, but the message that we're getting to people.
Right. So in other words, what you want to do in today's day and age is educate your customer before you sell them something.
Exactly. Well, yeah, because if you educate a patient, if you educate a person about what it is that that you do, or why what you do is going to benefit them, it's not a situation. People. I've said this for years, and I think it's probably the most important way to look at it. People love to buy things, but they hate to be sold to. So if you give them the information that they need to make their own decision, then they don't have to. You don't have to sell them on anything, because they've actually already made the decision themselves.
Because they know that through that education process, you've taken the time to explain to them what the benefit to them is going to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that one.
And that's something that I think we're seeing more and more of, especially because of the information that people can actually get on the internet. And it's the reason that things like the little videos and that type of thing, whether it's YouTube or whether it's Facebook or however, it's the reason that those things are actually so beneficial. Because what happens is, if you're educating them and you're giving them the information, and then they're able to more or less interact with you, they're going to feel a lot more comfortable later on if they do feel that they need you for something.
Let me ask you a question. Going back to, we were talking about your book that's coming out. Are you going to have an audio version of that? Because, I'm a big fan of, as owning a business and evolving, I'm constantly reading 1 or 2 books a month, but I don't actually have the time to sit down and read. So what I do is I get audio books and I listen to them when I'm driving around the car. I mean, you drive from the age of 16 to the time you're 80, you're going to spend 5 years of your life at a stoplight.
At least. Yeah.
So are you going to have an audio version of your book?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we're actually going to be, as soon as all this other stuff opens up, it's going to be a lot easier to actually make that conversion and everything else. I have a tendency to listen to at least an audiobook a week, but generally speaking, several. And if you look at, hang on, I'll just show you this real quick, because this is it's kind of funny to look at. But so if we look at our Audible account, all right, so
hold it up higher. You can't see it on the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go.
Here,
this right here is.
That's your Audible list.
That's my Audible list. So
that's awesome.
If you look at it, I mean, we do a lot of audiobooks. And
who are some of your favorite authors?
Well, a lot of it depends. I mean, there's a guy named Bill Bryan, who does a lot of kind of neat things with some of the sci-fi stuff. And then there's a lady called Judy Mikovits, who wrote a book several years ago called Plague. And it talks about vaccinations and how they actually have created some other problems along with that. And then,
well, that's timely.
I know it's a great book. And then, things like everything from Grant Cardone to Bill O'Reilly to, I mean, you name it. I mean, there's a little bit of everything in here. Some of it is history. Some of it is sci-fi, and some of it is, just more information about different, whether it's, from a self-help standpoint or from a I've got Russell Brunson stuff in there. I've got, you name it. You name it, I listen to it.
Right. Yeah. I think as leaders of our employees, our companies, we've got to be constantly, educating ourselves. And like I said, I run in 3 different businesses. I don't have time to sit down and read a book. I need to squeeze it in while I'm doing something else.
I don't have the patience either anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, I'm looking forward to the audio version of your book coming out.
I appreciate that. As soon as we get it taken care of, the actual book is like 240 pages or something like that. So, and like I said, we've got the new research and everything else that actually talks about it. I'm in the process also of finishing up a research project with what it is, with the type of treatment that we do in my office. So I mean, we've got, the biggest thing about all of this stuff is that we're always evolving. We're always actually working to introduce new things where where we're working to help, as many people as we possibly can. And the only way to do that, I think, is by making sure that you're educated as much as you possibly can be. So it's not just the regular reading books and everything else, because I read a lot of research as well. Nice thing about research is if you do it right, you don't have to read the whole damn thing. But at the same time, sometimes you might not get the right information from the research done.
Is your book going to be available on Amazon?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It's going to be available on Amazon, and along with that, we'll have it here in the office. We will have, and like I said, on Audible and that type of thing.
I know this is premature, but do you have a link on your website where they can go get it? Or at least sign up for when it comes out.
It should be under I think it's under drrichardbusch.com. Hang on a second. Hold on, I can tell you.
Okay.
All right. It is it's under drrichardbusch.com, drrichardbusch.com.
Okay.
So as far as that's concerned, we should have not only the ability to do that, but we're also, one of the other things that we're doing here is we get that book under control and get it published. Again, it's some of it is it's more or less a second volume or a second edition of the first book, but we brought everything else up to date. Changed a lot of the content, and then along with that, as I mentioned, I do train medical doctors and chiropractors from around the country, so to do what we do in my office, and that's something that we're going to be doing a lot more with as well.
Once this pandemic comes to an end.
As soon as the pandemic comes to an end, but we the interesting thing is a lot more things are being done on Zoom. Okay,
right.
What we're talking on right now,
like this particular podcast.
Right, exactly. So what we're going to be doing with all of this stuff is, we are going to be doing some little online classes or courses, and basically working to help, get people more information about what it is that we do. And then along with that, we will be doing, not only just short podcasts or classes or whatever weekly, but we will also be doing some other things more from a training standpoint monthly. And then along with that, they can actually come through the entire program where we actually have them here, and it's a 3-day program, and it's almost like it's almost like trying to take a drink from a fire hose. So we're getting a lot of information out there.
But you're going to have an online component so people can watch it over and over and over. Good.
Yep.
Good. All right.
So it's all this stuff everything is in process. Actually, the interesting thing about the program is we've got as far as the entire program and everything else, we've got handbooks and everything else. I mean, there's about that much information that's as far as the handbooks and that type of thing. So all of this stuff it's a lot of great information. It's to help. It really is to help more doctors help more patients avoid surgery. And so I've dedicated my life to helping people avoid needless and unnecessary surgeries and avoid some of the needless and unnecessary side effects that they may get from some of these pain medications. One of the biggest problems that we see right now, you think about the number of people that actually have died as a result of this coronavirus thing. Well, last year, and I think that the number was about 70,000 people died as a result of opioid problems.
Right.
So there are more people that die each year as a result of the opioids than died during the Vietnam War.
And stop me if I'm wrong, but that starts from having chronic pain, and then you become addicted to the solution.
Exactly.
Wow, that's powerful.
So it's an amazing thing, and again, the biggest thing is, we start talking about this stuff, it becomes a quality of life issue. Okay. Chronic pain affects everything about people. It not only affects their attitude, and their personality, but it also affects everybody around them, because when people are in pain, they're generally not as much fun to be around. And so a lot of times when I'm working with patients, I'll joke with them, or I'll joke with their spouse about the fact that as we start getting them to feel better, we're going to make them nicer too.
Wow.
And
yeah, that's a positive outcome.
and and you think about it, if you start to think about the fact that what we're doing not only affects their quality of life, but it also affects their spouse, their kids, everybody that they work around. It affects the way that they interact with everybody in their life. Wow. And so that makes it a really it's one of the reasons that I love what I do.
Right. Well, I know that you're a busy guy and you gotta run because you got some patients coming in now. But that being said, do you have any final thoughts on how this has affected your business and from what you plan on doing going forward?
I think that probably the best thing, the best side effect of all this stuff is it actually forced us to go back through and look at a lot of the things that we've been doing over the course of years, and kind of more or less trim the fat, get rid of the things that we don't necessarily need, because as we start looking at these different things, sometimes we become pretty complacent and well, this is the way it is because it's always been this way. And so we start looking at, well, okay, so do we really need some of the things that we're doing? Do we really need, as far as equipment or whatever? But the thing is, there are a lot of times where you get into that cycle where you're just continually paying for something that you don't necessarily need. Right. It's one of those things that we did with that we've evaluated as far as our advertising and marketing. And so there are some things that we probably really weren't getting the results that we really needed to. And so we keep statistics on everything as far as the results that we're getting. And so I was forced to go back through and look at all that stuff. Right. And so, and so there are some other areas where you go, okay, well, this is something that we haven't been spending enough money on. And so we need to actually address that too. So I think that that's probably the biggest thing. And I think also along with that is just remembering and making sure that you're aware that, that the whole world can go to hell pretty quickly.
Pretty quickly. Yeah. I think pretty much every business owner that I've spoken to, I've done interviews with, everybody has gone to that, trimmed all the fat down to stuff that's not working, to stuff that was a luxury that, they kind of just got used to or forgot about. Right. Yeah, all that's gone. But I think you're right. Going like anything, any disaster, like, in 2009 or, 9/11, all that stuff, you don't really appreciate how quickly your situation can change.
Right. There's no question about that.
But
and then once that happens, you're like, okay, now I have to reevaluate everything.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter what you own. This is going to happen. Everybody loves it when the business is running, on all 8 cylinders, but then all of a sudden, boom, major problems happen. And that's where the real leaders step forward. That's what I believe.
I think the question isn't necessarily what it also along with that though, isn't necessarily what you own. It's what owns you.
Yeah.
And when you start thinking about some of these other things that happen, you're like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. So this is, these are things that we need to rethink. There are things that we need to not only reevaluate, but look at and reprioritize.
Well, I mean, how many employees does your practice have?
Good question.
All right, without the number, I mean, without thinking about everybody, but really, you're responsible for their livelihood.
Yeah, I mean, 10 to 15 people in several different businesses.
And the reason I point that out is you're making decisions not only for you, your business, and your family, but their families.
Right.
And I think as business owners, we all go through those decisions. Like, if I do this, what happens if?
Right.
Yeah.
There's no question. And it does make you take everything a little bit more seriously.
Yeah. Hey, Rick, I want to thank you for being on the interview, man. This has been really enlightening, and I had a lot of fun with this one.
I really appreciate your time. I did as well. Thank you very much. And if there's anything else I can do, let me know.
All right, will do. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.